Welcome back, everybody. This is the Caribbean Business Review. I'm Joseph Cox, and we are now going into our strategy deep dive. And this week, we're very pleased, very pleased to have a special guest, Dorothy Vernon-Brown. Now, Dorothy is a marketing automation strategist, coach, and author. And she's also the founder of AKB Small Business Marketing. And the book that Dorothy has authored is The Automatic Follow-Up Formula. Now, Dorothy Vernon-Brown.
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure to see you, my friend. A real pleasure. And
Thank
good to
you.
have you here on this program. Now, I tell you something, Dorothy, one of the things that strikes me when I look through your profile and everything is that for you, authenticity seems to be at the center of your work. You are in what I call the sweet spot, the nexus between marketing and technology. But marketing and authenticity is seemingly a central part of your offering. And I want to guide me. How does that, or why is that such a central theme to you, particularly in this environment where you have tools like artificial intelligence and, automation, which functionally has transformed the entire marketing space? Why is authenticity so important?
Thank you, Joseph, and it's really great to be here as well. I think at the core of who we are, Joseph, we're people. And when it comes to marketing, it's showing up as who we are in order to serve people that we ought to serve. So in terms of authenticity, it means that brands or individuals or companies need to show up for the audience so the audience can and trust them. Because authenticity is about likability, it's about transparency, it's about honesty. And you talk about the intersection between AI and technology. That's where we are today. And I find that we are at a stage we're in a paradoxical time in our lives, actually. But the truth is, the brands, the individuals, the entrepreneurs who show up as themselves, who show up true to who they are without faking it, are the ones that are winning now. Because that's something that technology and AI cannot replicate. We can't replicate our likability or who we are or showing up as our true selves. So that's why that's core to me, because people buy from people they like and trust. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
But when you say that, it takes me back to the days of the pandemic, COVID-19. And what we found at that point in time is that a lot of people went absolutely remote. Everything was online, everything was completely automated, no touch, basically no contact, no effective, at least in-person contact.
Right.
And I wondered then, how do you actually maintain that authenticity when you are confronted with such a cold, frankly, environment?
Right. So that's a great question, Joseph. So we're as humans, we're made to connect. And I think that's where it is. It's that emotional resonance. So although we had to pivot, if you notice that things that were going viral, the brands that came out on top are the ones that were emotionally connecting with people in a lockdown. So it's around that emotional resonance and connection. Even when we are separated, and those were circumstantial issues, right? So there are some things that are out of our control. But the things that are in our control is how we connect emotionally, truthfully, and authentically with those that we're serving. And that's how I see Joseph. It really doesn't matter. We are in a world where we can do business anywhere. We're in a world where we have choices. But as I say to my clients, your tribe will vibe with you because they connect with you emotionally and in a way that is authentic to them.
So therefore, Dorothy, as you say that, what comes readily to mind is that means that for the vast majority of people, there's a functional disconnect with the customer base. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. And guide me where I'm wrong. Tell me exactly where I'm wrong.
Right.
This is the day and age of chatbots.
Right.
In other words, a number of the functions are completely automated. Sometimes you call a company and you're hard pressed to actually find just an individual to actually speak with.
Right.
So isn't that we are going down a wrong path? And it seems to be the trend, because even now we're hearing, of course, with the advent of AI, we're hearing that in some of the countries, things like the business processing outsourcing sector, at least in the Caribbean, where we seem to go towards a base type engagement with that. A lot of those processes will be, which are focused on customer service, will be replaced using the technology. Is there a disconnect? Are we going the wrong direction? Well, how do we do this?
Good. It is a balance, Joseph. It is a balance. So the companies that are gone on the other side of completely outsourcing their customer service, what is happening? The customers are frustrated. And if there are options, they're moving exactly. They're moving to places where they can speak to real people. And that becomes a competitive advantage. And I think a lot of the big brands are losing that. And I hear you, because a lot of my clients will say, I don't want to sound robotic. I don't want to outsource it to chatbot, but it's a balance of where do you hand off to a human? How do you sound like you care? And you have to care. It's when we don't care about what our clients feel and how you serve them, that's when we get off balance and off kilter. So I think big brands and small brands have to recognize the tool is not there to replace. This is my opinion, and we've seen it play out. It's not here to replace, it's here to enhance and to amplify. But there needs to be a balance of when do I hand off to a human and when do I use the tools and create that balance in customer service and client service, because we're here to serve our clients and not the other way around.
No, well, quite. And indeed, it's one of the ironic questions that I often raise about some of our retail establishments, where when I travel overseas, sometimes you're sick and tired of people following you around the place, probably for different reasons, I would admit, but following you around the place, basically badgering you into trying to purchase stuff. Whereas in the region, in the Caribbean, honestly, the most repeated question is, do you work here? Because you're always seeking for that human connection. Who is it?
Yes, yes.
What is it that they're doing? So I take your point, but I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, all right, on the one hand, you have the efficiency that comes with the technology, right?
Yeah.
So I can say functions like, I mean, frankly speaking, some of the retail aspects of it, I suppose I can do it. Which are some of the routine functions, obviously, can do that. But Dorothy, in a world now where I'm told the average attention span is down to 8 seconds,
Right.
how do you engage, maintain, and enhance brand authenticity in that sort of dynamic?
Good. Great question. So one of the reasons you reached out to me was because of an article I wrote on
Yes.
LinkedIn about Steve Madden. And shout out to my zillennial daughter who brought it to my attention. She knows I'm always in search of amazing stories for good marketing
Right.
lessons. In that article was about how Steve Madden showed up on a podcast. So we all know the Steve Madden brand has been around for a very long time. He's not new to fashion. He's not new to retail. But what has happened is that because of that one podcast, we almost see it as a resurgence of that brand because he showed up authentically, speaking about his prison time in prison,
Right.
speaking about how he duped some of the bigger brands, just being authentic and speaking about the people that he served. You saw the comments that went crazy. It went viral because he was just raw, real, and unapologetically himself. Now, let's not talk. Yes, that is a big brand win, but it is being said, and I can't verify that because of that virality, he's added $100 million to his revenues. There's a case of Risa Tisa. I don't know if you know of that case. This young woman, oh my goodness, on TikTok. She just was so raw and real. She was duped by somebody she married, duped her. She created a TikTok series. It like a 50-part series. It went viral. She has had so many brand deals. She's also had she's inked a Disney deal that's going to reflect her life. This is what you talk about. She speaks about, I'm not pretending. This is my life. This is what has happened to me. And people tuned in. When I tell you she was raw, she talked about how he wined and dined her, how the awful things that he did to her. And that millions of views. And that has catapulted her to the stratosphere. So we talk about that. You and I know the very Joan Duncan. Before
Yes, yes.
before authenticity was a big brand buzzword, we knew Joan Duncan. Or those of you
Yes.
listening don't know about Joan Duncan, the founder of JMB. Joan was as real and raw as she came. Brilliant woman, but you knew her story. And
Yes.
that is it, Joseph. It's people want to understand your story and your journey and want to be able to resonate. So we talked earlier about this emotional resonance. People want to see themselves in you and in the brand as well. Because going back to Steve Madden, you would hear them talk about Steve gets me, I'm brand loyal in. He called me
Mhm.
girlies. It's just a language, it's just this connection that he made, and that's what this is about.
But isn't the converse also true? Because so often, I mean, I'm just a recent, I call it voyeur on TikTok, right?
Right.
I'm not going to pretend I'm active or anything on it. But some of the stuff that I would see on it would say that the converse of what you said is also true, that some people manage to fake some things, because I refuse to believe that some of the stuff that I see is actually true or
Right.
accurate, yes?
Right. Right.
But they seem to engage with another level of audience. They get the virality that you speak of, etc., etc. So isn't the converse also true?
First is also true. You always will have fakers. Listen, we have AI that can be as deep fake as you get it.
Well, true.
You can replicate me. You can clone my voice, clone my image. We can get it as you, but people can sniff out fakeness. People, listen, they have what they call internet sleuths and detectives. Let my Zenino daughter tell you about this. They will sniff you out like nobody's business and really call you out if you are faking stuff. So these days, these days you can fake it to a point, but you will most likely be found out. There's so many instances, Joseph, of where somebody has blown up because of some show or something, and they have dug into their past
Hmm. Found the
and
truth.
revealed who they are. So yeah, we know these things are here, but performative action, deep fake, they'll always be with us. But we're talking about the sustainable brands, the sustainable businesses, the ones that are getting real ROI are the ones that are really authentic. And that's what we're talking about.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. Now, walk me through another bit of a challenge I'm having. The age issue. You have a number of people in the Caribbean who are not tech savvy. They were never really exposed to those things, etc., etc. How do you maintain or engage authentically with someone who, frankly speaking, they have no background in this thing? They don't know what to believe. They're hearing on the one hand about this thing named deepfake. They engaging with some things known as chatbots when they're trying to reach out, for example, to the banks and telecommunications providers, etc. But at the same time, they don't know who to trust or what to believe. The attitude, the attitude. If I don't know,
Absolutely.
I don't engage.
Right,
How do
right.
you bridge that gap?
Well, I think that the bridging has to be on the side of the or the
Mm-hmm.
company, because
Mm-hmm.
the truth is that all our customers, our clients are not equal. We consume
Quite so.
information in different ways. And so I think the brand or the company that feels that there's only one way to communicate is missing an opportunity. So we're going to have in any one group of clients or customers, you're going to have the more advanced ones, and that they're okay working with bots or interacting with bots. You're going to want the ones that are need the hand holding. They want to come inside of your establishment and have a conversation, look you in the eye and trust you. You have those, right? And you have the ones that straggle somewhere in between the middle. So I think brands and companies that are focused on one channel of communication is missing the bigger picture and missing opportunities, quite frankly, because we all engage differently. What I can tell you, millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Y, they see the world differently. And if you serve that group of clients or potential clients, then you have to show up for them. And you have to show up in a way that they consume the information.
No, quite so. But then you see, what I'm also looking at is when you get into this type of engagement, you also have a situation whereby coming again, as I referenced before, the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, what became clear was that the customers had evolved. They were
Yeah.
looking now for what we call omni-channel solutions, looking for the brick and mortar in some respects, but looking for the online presence, etc. And they're looking for that level of engagement.
Right.
But the stores, by and large, in the region have not responded and are trying to understand why.
You know
You have a
what?
feel?
You know what? All right, I'm going to look in my
I mean, I know
crystal
you're in
ball.
Canada, but still.
I'm gonna look at, here's the thing, perhaps is a slow adoption rate, right? So we know that in North America that the uptick of the technology is faster than say in the Caribbean, in some Caribbean countries. And
Right.
I can actually tell you that if you were to look at the United States and Canada, the US in terms of the technology adoption is much faster, much quicker than Canada, right?
Okay.
So it is. So it is a matter of where we see our priorities. Perhaps, listen, Joseph, in the Caribbean, there, if maybe these companies are saying this is how our customers like to be communicated with, and this is what we're going to do. But what I will say is that a lot of companies are short-sighted, or brands are short-sighted, because you serve this cohort of clients today, the boomers or the Gen Xers. Tomorrow, if you want to be a sustained business, your next group of clients are going to be the millennials. As we talked about earlier, they consume information. They want to be reached differently. And so you have to be more proactive in the way you look at who you serve. And I think this is where understanding your customer base comes in. It goes back to some foundational principles, Joseph, in marketing. You have to understand who you serve. And as I said, it's not a homogeneous group. You'll have different within your group of clients. You're going to have different kinds of people. You have to understand who you serve, how they like to be communicated with, and start to put systems and processes in place to make those transitions. Because what I will tell you this: if you are trying to reach them Gen Xers or Gen Zs by traditional means, you're going to lose them. I actually just wrote an article about BBC. BBC has just created a new AI department which is focusing on TikTok. Yes. Why? Because they recognize that their audience, who are becoming the Gen Zers, the millennials, they consume information differently. They want things in sound bites. They're not reading a 5-minute newspaper article. They want quick sound bites. We talk about the attention span, and you have to give them quick attention bites. Where do they turn? TikTok. I can tell you that because that's where my zillennial daughter turns to get information. And so if we are not understanding who our customer base is, how we segment them, and within those segments, how we communicate, then yes, the Caribbean will continue to lag behind.
That's a very interesting. No, that's a very, very interesting. And therefore, it carries me into a next aspect of it, whereby in the Caribbean, frankly, and I know that Canada also is a multicultural society. How do you maintain your brand authenticity in that sort of dynamic atmosphere? We have varying cultures. The socioeconomic dynamic is, of course, all over the
Right.
place. How do you maintain that brand authenticity within that dynamic?
Right. So here's how I look at it. It's marketing 101 for me, is that
Okay.
you don't serve everybody. You serve a certain
Really
section.
can't.
You don't serve everyone, right? So you have to really understand who your customer base is. As I simply say, your tribe will vibe with you. Once you understand your customer base and you understand their needs and you understand how they like to be communicated, again, it goes back to who are you serving and how do they like to consume their information. If you're serving Gen Zs, then the way your strategy around communicating and maintaining your authenticity is different than if you're serving boomers or you're serving millennials. It's different because we talk about trust. The Gen
Yeah.
Zs, it's about trust. It's about social impact. If they don't see that you as a brand or a company is big on social impact, is transparent in how you do business, you're going to lose them. So when we talk about, this is not in a vacuum. That's the way I see it. It's not a vacuum. It's not, let me just be authentic. It is your whole gamut of how you run your business and how that brand shows up for its clients. And so I think that is one of the things. It's around trust, it's around likability, and it's around who the brand and the company, who they are at their core, those values. Go back to JMB and Joan Duncan. Part of the brand value at that time was love, openness. Joan Duncan was clear. She wanted people to have a clean heart and love everybody over money. We know that. That's what drove her. And everything in the company reflected that. That's how this company served its clients. Love showed up in its mission. I recall just having all of these when we had our meetings. It was front and center. It was central. Transparency was central. And so that permeated the entire company. And so that's where I think the authenticity starts, Joseph, is who are you as a business at your core, and why do you serve? And once you understand those things fundamentally and foundationally, then you build that, and that comes naturally, Joseph. There's no faking about that, because people will sniff that out easily. And if we're being performative about that, your audience will sniff that out really, really easy.
No, I appreciate your point completely. While you balance, isn't it you're a bit of a balancing act, Dorothy? Because in the one sense, you are, of course, you want to maintain your brand authenticity. But at the other hand, and at the other standpoint, you have the technology which drives your efficiency.
Right.
Now, the obvious thing is, how do you marry the two without losing your unique and distinctive voice?
Oh my goodness, that's such a great question, Joseph. One, because you embrace one doesn't mean you lose one. There's a great, you call it marry. It's where, it's how you deliver in those processes. Like you talk about the big companies where their process is that it's completely automated. You can't speak to a human. There's no handoff to a human. Now, that definitely, you have outsourced your customer service to a human. Nobody likes that. We're at the stage where we don't like that. What is old is new again. That is where we like that human to human connection, where you can actually speak to somebody. And I think that is where we become intentional as a brand, where we use the technology to create the efficiencies. And then we have that human element that cannot be replicated, where you marry those two, where at some point there has to be an interaction with the human. Because you're right, it is a frustrating thing, but brands have to be intentional about that, right? And we know that brands that aren't, the backlash they will get. This is a day where social media is so swift, where we're turned on a dime, that if you're not intentional about how you serve your client or your customer, the backlash is really swift. So I think the technology definitely gives you the efficiency, but it doesn't mean you need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It means you marry them both and have that handoff, have that human to human connection, and have that whole thing of that emotional resonance, especially if your audience tells you that they want that. There is a way to do this.
No, I understand that. But you see, it also strikes me that you are in, for example, in the region. You are in the Caribbean, I mean, but you're in a space whereby, for some persons, yes, the AI might be there. You have some persons who will they read and whatever, they're engaged.
Yes.
But you have those who you still have to use the town crier. You still have to use the flyers. In other words, you still have to go back to the bare bones, old-fashioned marketing. But you're you're also in a world of limited budgets. That's a real world.
Right.
Walk me through it.
Again, it's all about balance. So here's at the basic level, Joseph. If the town crier and the newspaper and the flyers and the old school, I love to say the old school thing work for you, and you are profitable, and you are not losing share, and you are not losing your clients, and you're growing, then my suggestion would be is to implement the other things to supplement those things that are working for you. And over time, as you see the shifts that are happening, you shift with it. So it's never a just completely upend your processes and your systems. Is look at what works for you, and I think that's what we don't do quite well, and this is not only in the Caribbean, just right across the board, is look at the things that I'm in marketing, track what's working for you. Like I chair a nonprofit and we track. We know what works for us. We speak to our 17 to 35 audience. And so we know we have to use a digital space for that, right? And we speak to an older audience that's 45 plus to get the donations. And we know they like the old school flyer and stuff, but
Okay.
some of them still like the technologies. And so we have to bridge that gap. When we speak to our 17 to 35, engage them in one way. And when we speak to our 45 and over, we speak to them in another way. And so that it is for companies and brands in the Caribbean is to understand again, it comes down to segmenting your market, but we don't have those tools in place to understand what's really bringing in our clients, what's driving the sale, what's driving the profit margins. And so, yes, we're looking at this from a really broad brush, but we don't know if the flyer is really doing it for us, or it's the word of mouth, or if it's the
True.
referral. We really don't know. We don't know
True.
if we tested some Google ads or some Meta ads, if that would do a better job. We don't know.
But
One,
then,
we're not testing it, we're not tracking.
wouldn't the issue, okay, wouldn't at least a good part of that be solved using MarTech solutions, the marketing
Yes,
technology?
yes, absolutely.
So why don't we know? I mean, you're in business to make profit, you're in business to, because if a business doesn't grow, it will stagnate and die. That's just reality.
Correct, correct. And we talk about the sustainability.
Right.
Here's what I believe based on what even here in Canada. It is here in Canada too, especially the small mom and pops. You know what it is? You know what it is? Drum roll. A mindset. It is a mindset that needs to be shifted. And I see it so often. As hocus pocus at that sound, Joseph, I can tell you that most people who still hold on to what used to work have
Right.
not yet shifted to what is possible. In Canadian hockey, there is Wayne Gretzky. He talked about where the puck is going. A lot of our Caribbean businesses are still at the place where the puck is, and they're not looking to where the puck is going.
Going quite so.
And so, in the next 5 years, what will happen is the market will shift under their feet. A young gun will come up in their market, and they don't know what has hit them in the head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Dorothy, we have to wrap up this thing in a few seconds, but I could not have you on this program and not ask you about your book.
Yes,
The automatic follow-up formula. What
yes.
is the automatic follow-up formula?
Thank you so much for asking. It is around using the MarTech automation to follow up your clients once they touch, or your prospects once they touch base with you, that you can have an automatic system to follow up so no lead falls through the cracks. And for small businesses, Joseph, this is a huge problem. How many times people call them, write them, what them say, I don't have any time, I'm too busy. They get back to them a week later, 2 weeks later. I have a graph in there that getting back to people over 24 hours, you are losing them, have gone to your competition, because these are the days that information is online. You can find the next best person online, and if you're not responding quickly, you are losing leads. And that's what the automatic follow-up is about: using the technology, bridging the gap to ensure that you have this automated system in place to follow up your leads in order to close the deal and get back to people quickly.
Which makes perfect sense. What they say, Dorothy, as I heard you walking me through that process, what it came to my mind, but isn't that the same principle you use in crisis communication, crisis public relations? Because contrary to a lot of people's thought process, once you hit that 24-hour mark, you have already lost the story in terms of
Exactly,
negative.
exactly. And yeah, and again, Joseph, this is about the mindset shift of seeing how the technology can be my ally. How can it be my partner? And I am telling you, Joseph, it is as simple as that. A lot of the small companies or brands that are not yet there, they're not seeing the value. They haven't seen that what this can do for them in the next 5 to 10 years, how it can help them to catapult, so they're
Yeah.
not struggling.
I get you. No, your point is very, very well taken. And Dorothy Vernon-Brown, that's where we have to end it here for today. Of course, Dorothy is the founder of AKB Small Business Marketing. And of course, she's a marketing automation strategist and coach and author of the automatic follow up formula. So thank you very much, Dorothy. It's a pleasure. I do hope that you'll become a
Thank you.
friend of this program and we'll have you back from time to time to walk us through your insights because you are in the diaspora and that diaspora spans this entire Caribbean. We're very grateful to you and thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for
All right.
having me, Joseph. It was a
All right.
pleasure.